Mario, you've had a beautiful career. You've weaved in and out of different series, midget racing, sprint cars, dirt track, Indy, Formula One, Formula 5000, and sports cars. I want to ask you about your first build, a 1948 Hudson Hornet that you and your brother got to build. What compelled you to get your hands in there?
Well, Christopher, that was basically how do you start? When we arrived here in the United States in 1955, Aldo and I, of course, twin age, and we already had this passion and dream that we cultivated just barely teenagers in Italy. And so when we arrived here, we discovered at the local fairgrounds here in Nazareth, where I live now. And so this looks very doable because the last race that we saw was the year before. And then, of course, the Formula One cars looked, pretty far, not very approachable, if you will. But anyway, it's an area that we figure, we can start with this. And we, along the way, about 2 years after we arrived here, we befriended 4 other buddies. And I always say there was a geek, the guy that was guiding us. And so why do we Hudson Hornet way? Hudson Hornets were the ones that were winning pretty much most of NASCAR at the time. So then we go ahead and we bought one of the teams that actually were going out of business because Hudson was out of the racing division there. And anyway, actually worked out pretty well for us on the local level. Although, we had, 2 drivers, 1 car, but the very first race, and so did I. I don't know, but as you can imagine, that was the best encouragement we could have had at the time.
Do you still remember the emotions of your very first race? Like when you got behind the wheel and you're gripping and you've turned it on? And a lot of people say the hardest thing or the scariest thing is always that first step. I mean, we look at you and we look at your career and we say, there's no way that Mario Andretti was ever nervous behind the wheel. That very first time, though, can you walk us through that?
You know what? You talk about the proverbial butterflies, and yes, they're there for sure. And the first time is even daunting. But you have to just look back and say, how blessed am I to have this opportunity? And you get through it. It's amazing. Once the engine fires up, everything disappears. Oh, you're down to business, down to doing your job. So it's interesting you bring this up because this was always like this apprehension, before any race. What's going to happen? This is the start, blah, blah. And that's natural. And I figure, you know what? Maybe after a couple of years, all of this is going to disappear. As a matter of fact, no. Right to the last race, to just getting in a form, you got the same apprehensions, same butterflies. Why? Important. Because it's important to you. You want to do a good job. You want to, very curious as to what's going to be your experience like and all that. So that, again, is an anxiety. And there's nothing wrong with being like that. Again, it's because it's important. That's the thing.
Now, from your start, when you built that car and now you have your own racing company, do you get your racers to work on any of the cars, to tinker anything? Is it still important for them to feel and get in under the hood type to sort of speak, or is it still more of a just get behind the wheel?
Well, it's our sport is a very, very complicated sport in many ways. You got, as you know, it's not just the driver. It's everyone involved, depend of every single person that is contributing in. And quite honestly, you can't do it without a team. I always say team effort, and that's team with a capital T. So everyone that's involved has to give their very best wherever, and that's the trick, because like I said, there's suspension, there's aerodynamics, and all this, and you don't of all trades. You want to have specialty in the department, and that's the key of it. That's the key for it. It's people's business, team. The only way I can explain it.
I have a question for you. What is your favorite off-track car? Like your everyday driving car?
Probably the next car that I'm going to buy. I'm a car guy, and so I've had the opportunity to buy, just treat myself with some really nifty car. Any given time, but I always go for that, the car that the present technology and everything else. Again, I need that the sedan, and I need the sports car. So so again, I've had Ferraris, I've had Lamborghinis, Jets, which I do. And as far as Lincolns, I've had Cadillacs, I've had Mercedes, I've had BMW, I've had Audis, and I have a Maserati right now. So we sort of experience all of it, what the industry has to offer. I was never 100% affiliated with the manufacturer, only because I wanted to have that freedom, to just move around and see what's available. And that part is fun, quite honestly, because the industry is so, because of that, who benefits? It's the customer. And to the other, and what's available, the bells and whistles that are available today, fun, my latest purchase was a Mini Cooper, John Cooper Works car. Awesome. Love it. And there you have it.
Beautiful. Mario, some drivers speak about something called a loose car when they're racing. Can you explain to us what that is for non-race car drivers? What does that mean, a loose car?
Well, that's very easy. Different ways of describing car, oversteer, that type of thing. It's a car that actually has a tendency to just lose the back, and that's a loose car. And now the other way, it's either understeer, or is the way you describe the opposite effect, which is in the front end supposed to be is the one that's not really turning in, is we call it. It's all about getting the car to go quickest, obviously, because if it's loose, you're going to add some speed because the car get bound up. And if you get understeer, the car is pushing, then you're turning the wheel and you're pushing the car to turn. So, you lose speed. So the trick is, again, to get the car as neutral as possible. But a lot of time push coming off. So it's not as easy as you think. Motion and aerodynamics effect and all that. So this sort of thing. I don't think you can go into and find a book that will tell you how to cure all that. Because cars in the same team, and you think you have everything you got, where you can copy one or the other, and sometimes it's almost implicated exactly. If you're really in a sweet spot in one car, and you try, unless you're down to the thousands, in all the measurement, it's that sensitive. So again, for a driver to remember that when you're driving a race car, you're to limit. You're to limit all the time disaster, if the car totally breaks away. And so because that's precision, to really get it right. That's the challenge that drivers have in being able to really properly to feel the car to the engineers, and having that relationship with the engineer hands, what you're trying to say, because many of us, we express ourselves in different ways. It's the human factor. It's all of these things that come into play.
Now, when we talk about, having that special team there and making sure everyone is on the same page, but I mean, every sport unfortunately does sometimes come with casualties. And Hollywood has given us glimpse with, Rush, Ford, Ferrari, kart racers, things like this. But from your experience and from being behind the wheel, can you kind of give us a glimpse of what any of that real danger is when you're out there?
We know that the sport can be cruel, for sure. And over the decades and year to year, work in progress. And you try to continue to make the possible to keep the drivers, so they have the opportunity to race another. I came through the decades where we were losing four to, in different categories, and it was terrible. But everybody got smarter, not just from STEM, in making the track safer, and also so many things you can do, which again, we have always, okay, we're getting smarter every year. From an engineering standpoint, we know how to make the car and handle better. How about making it safer, when something happens? And as the sport became more and more commercial, it was all important to do that, because I said this many, many times in my interviews that if we acted vigorously on the safety side, I don't think it could have existed. It became more and more commercial. It's a very expensive sport. That's why you need sponsors. And again, sponsors want to celebrate. And so the sport has achieved that in the best possible way. The disciplines obviously benefit from one another. And that's a beautiful, you can see that I keep saying, and here again, today's best chance ever to retire on their own terms. And that's huge.
Of course. What is one of the proudest moments of your career that you can share with us?
Well, the proudest share the track and be on the same track with my two sons from a career standpoint. I'll tell you events. I'll give you one event, for instance. 1986, Pocono 500. And I were at the top level, Indy cars, and the younger son, jetting event, like the Indy Lights that we have today. And he won that race. Michael was on pole for the 500, and I won the 500. My father, to be there on that weekend and having sons there on the track and clean house, sort of, it doesn't get any better than that. I tell you, Christopher, these are Michael and I, my older son, were on podium in an Indy cars, father and son, and we were first and second 5 times. On the front row of a race 10 times. It was 5, 10, and 15, believe it or not. These are the moments. I mean, naturally, the championships. The championships are the. When how did I become enamored with motor racing? As I said, in Italy, still living in Italy, I fell in love with Formula One. I had Italy, in the 50s, especially with Ferrari, Maserati, Alfa Romeo. Formula One. My idol was Alberto Scotti, which was a world twice 354, and here go artists so early, here and be able to to just put it all together. It's blessed.
If you could give your average driver some driving lessons or some tips, what would be the biggest thing that you could say? Hey, stop doing this, or you need to do more of that.
Well, one thing I've never claimed to be a teacher, but some of the common things are, just not think about yourself. Think about that, especially on the road. I mean, on the road, it could be somebody alongside of you, and it could be and think of, always give it a benefit of the doubt that not be 100% with it. So I think that's the best advice. To just be aware of that. Just be defensive.
We do have a question for you where it's about the I guess, the Andretti curse for the 500s. Now, in 1969, you won, but there was a rule book winning about you winning, I believe, around 81. I was just wondering if you could share that story.
1981, yeah. There was a race that I had to start. I started last at all. I started last because I couldn't qualify. I was at Monaco for my, and so, I had a job to do, starting 33rd. But anyway, went down basically to the last pit stop. I was already up to behind Bobby Unser. It was a yellow caution, so took that and went in pits together, and there's a specific rule that if you're with the field again, and the field is alongside of you like a pace car, when you come to the end of the pit wall, you look at what car you see, that's the car that you blend in behind at Indy. And so I was right on, and as we came out, my car was actually a Volk car, and so I knew for sure that's where I needed to blend behind. Bobby, being just in front of me, maybe he could have gone in front of him or something like that. But when we came out of the pits, when we came out and turned two behind the pace car, we passed technically 11 cars. And I was engineer. I'm about Jim McGee. I said, Jim, I said, the hell, what am I behind him now? He keeps right on going. He went right behind the pace car. And Jim, stay where he is. And so even the announcers, like, there's film about it. And the race, and there was Jim McKay and Jackie Stewart, and Jackie Stewart was saying, you can't do that. Obviously, it was a rule. And so anyway, he stayed there, and, we go, and of course, then I finished second to him. But in those days, because there was no computer, they would all show the next day, because they would go through all the tapes and everything. If there were any penalty, the penalties would come out the next day. So I get a call from in the morning. He says, Mario says, you won the race. They penalized Bobby a lap, which is the normal penalty for that. Any infraction like that, even smaller infraction, it's a lap. And so through all the, the celebrations and everything, the banquet and everything, and the owners of the other team, Bobby's team, which was Roger Penske, they have the road test and or an appeal, if you will. And so this thing dragged on the whole summer. Obviously, they would just give it time, and so people would forget. And his lawyers convinced USADA to allow 3 independent judges to make the final list. And so, anyway, and chose 2 outsiders, 2 CEOs, one from Chicago, one from LA, a local radio broadcaster, and the radio, okay, the penalty stays, because that's a fact, it's got precedence. And the other 2 said, well, under the circumstances, the penalties, we'll fine them $40,000 and give them the race back. So I thought that was a travesty, in my opinion, of the rule. Better. The following year, there's a traditional drivers meeting, and after the meeting was concluded, I raised my hand to the race. I said, Tom, just to clarify, any rule changes? Nope. Okay, so technically, if I patented the yellow today and cross the finish line first, is it $5? He said, oh, no. Oh, I said, this year you get penalized, right? Well, absolutely, He said, well, he says, penalized him, because he did. He said, but then, it was out of my hands. So that was, to be honest with you, and it was hard for me to swallow. That's why, in 1981 ring. And again, it was because, okay, I won that race. Legally, I won that race. And again, there were precedents, two precedents. I think the year before where there was even a lesser, they were penalized from second to sixth because it penalized a lot. And that was, so anyway, it is what it is, but we had to live with it.
I have time for one more question for you, Mario. What makes Mario Andretti smile?
Enjoying life, quite honestly. You look back at, try to maintain a positive attitude, and just the fact that family, great friends, and, career, which has been so important to me, to be able to dodge so many bullets and have satisfied every moment. And because I don't know anyone that is more passionate in driving a race car. So there's so many things in that situation make my life, just wonderful, quite honestly.